Welcome to Just Say This, the place to get all the help you need for the birds and bees talks. I'm your host, Amy Lang. Just a quick reminder, this show is for grown-ups because I'll be swearing. There'll be lots of swears, and then I'll also be talking about grown-up sex. I can guarantee that your kids do not want to listen to this, and they really don't want to listen to it with you. You've been warned. Do you have a question for me? Please give me a call. The phone number is 206-926-1522, 206-926-1522, and I will answer on the show. And if you have a funny sex talk story, please call in those as well, 206-926-1522. Thanks. I am super excited because I have the marvelous Nikki Knepper as my very first guest star. Nikki is the author of Moms Who Drink and Swear, which is based on her kick-ass blog and her marvelous Facebook page of the same name. And she's also a therapist and a gerontologist. Did I say that right?
You said that correct. And you said I was marvelous 4 times. That's nice.
That's because you are, and you're hilarious and fun, and you get it, and you get the momming, and you get everything else. And I feel like it's like this bonus that you're also a therapist. Not that you're going to be therapying any of your advice today, but super fun to have you. And so I'm super curious just from your own experience, because we all need to talk about this. When you were a kid, did your parents talk to you about sex?
They did. It's like some early memories I have are about conversations about sex. I was helping my mom make the bed, and there was a condom wrapper under the bed. And what's this? Oh, that's a condom wrapper. And, she explained what a condom was. I was shocked, like most little kids. You had sex more than twice? I thought you just did that to make a baby. So it was one of those like aha moments. And then I started noticing things like they had a flip lock on the top of their door.
Oh.
So, little kids paddling in the middle of the night when it's a rainstorm. I had recalled times when I couldn't get in.
Yeah.
If I was scared and I had to knock and they came, and it just all came together at that moment. So I'm just like,
oh no,
doing it regularly, because I learned about it really young. I mean, my parents were super open about it.
That's, you're lucky you, right? Because most of us did not have that experience, and what great modeling as well.
Yes.
And do you see that in your parenting life?
Very much. And I didn't realize how lucky I was at the time. Like, not at all. But, nobody talked to my mom about it, and she was very lonely, and she got her first period when she was 10.
Yeah.
No one had talked to her about it yet.
Ugh.
And this is in 1950.
Yes.
She's in a spelling bee, a citywide spelling bee, and she thinks she's dying.
Mm.
And she just didn't get a little period. She got, my mom, poor thing, was a hemorrhager. And,
God.
And she started dating my dad young. They knew each other since they were little, but they started dating in high school. And his family was more open about things. And my dad was very open. And so it was a gift to her to be able to talk about it. And she knew how much she struggled not having someone to talk to. So I think that was a priority for her and for my dad to talk to my brother and I about it, and to really let us, when we learned about sex, it's kind of like how you teach people.
Cool.
Here are the mechanics. Yeah. This is how it works. And do you have any questions?
Yeah. And that worked for you. And then because they were so open, it sounds like you could just felt comfortable talking and asking, and they set that stage. And so I know you have children. And so what kind of conversations have you had with them?
Well, I love your stuff, by the way. So I'm very direct, the way that you encourage people to be. Meet them where they're at. When they ask questions, give them the developmentally appropriate answer for the time, and then move forward. And I think when kids are old enough to ask the questions, they're old enough to get an answer that they have the context to understand. So that's how we have always been with the kids. And it's definitely more informational and not how sometimes when people say, we need to talk.
Right.
And then
yeah.
and I'm going to use the word that makes me feel pretentious again, but it's usually been very organic and genuine. It's came into a conversation via something else that
Mm-hmm.
flowed very naturally into it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, my daughter, we were on a walk the other night and she has given me permission to tell this story. So I'm going to
Thank
tell
you.
the story. So we were walking, we were talking, and she said, have you used the Minion bubble bath yet? So we bought the Minion themed bubble bath that smells like bananas. And I said, I did, but I made sure only to use a little bit because bubble bath can get your lady parts all itchy and stuff. You really got to rinse that stuff out, like all the nooks and crannies. And she goes, oh, maybe that's why I'm, like gunky down there. And I said, well, what do you gunky? And I'm like, is it like the snot that you stretch or is it the cheesy stuff? That's what a yeast infection looks like. Until you have a better suggestion, I'm going with how it's described by the gynecologist.
Yeah, there we go. That's
Cheesy, thick discharge
yes,
would be
yes.
yeast infection, itchy, burny. Regular vaginitis might be kind of a little smelly and a little
Right.
snotty. I mean,
Right.
I'm sorry, but we're going to talk about this because it's a
Yes.
huge part of your health. And
Right.
she's like, it's not that I don't want to talk about it. It's just you use like cheese. So
You're
stuck on
ruining
the
cheese
cheese.
for me.
It was such an organic conversation, right? We're talking about the bubble bath. It's those little things that if you're not afraid to talk about it, and you can flow into these conversations and there's no shame and you have the boundaries. Because if my daughter had not wanted to share with me what was going on with her undercarriage, if you will,
Right.
and we like to use all different names
Yeah.
along with the regular
I was
names.
just going to say we're pro euphemism over here.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as they know the correct things and you just go to town with the lady parts and the undercarriage.
Oh my God, the funnier the better too. The
Yeah,
more
no shit.
creative and the more metaphorical,
Yes.
it's
The
awesome.
better. Yes, 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 yes.
So it
Well,
was nice because when she stopped, when she kind of stopped me and said, stop saying cheesy, I'm like, I respected the boundary.
yep. And good on ya. Speaking of talking to kids, shall we get to our first question?
I would love it.
Hello, I have a 4.5-year-old girl just about to turn 5, and she has just discovered the shower wand and loves putting it in between her legs and pointing it at herself and going, Mom, it tickles, and just laughing and having a great time. And I don't know what to say, if I should say nothing or say anything or explain what's going on and why it tickles or just leave it alone and let her enjoy the wand or what. So tell me what to say. Thank you.
All right, Nikki, what you got? What do you think?
Okay. So the first thing about this is it's just so cute. It's just so cute. That age, 4 is, wait, what is she? About to turn 5. That's a great age.
Yeah. And a great age to figure out some
Absolutely.
fancies down there.
Absolutely. There's a lot of discovery, but also they're starting to get context. So what really stuck out about this is that, first of all, what her daughter said was, Mom, it tickles.
Yeah, it
That's all
does.
she said. And so Mom says, I don't know what to say. And then, should I say nothing? Should I say anything? Should I explain what's going on or why it tickles? Where I go with this is her daughter did not ask her any questions. Her daughter made a statement. It's very bold and intimate. Mom, it tickles, right? She's telling her how she feels. And I think it's great too, because there's no shame. So at that age, she's in a really good place already.
Yeah, and it's true, it tickles, right? And she didn't ask anything. She was just making that statement, which is fabulous because
Yes.
the mom now has an opportunity to follow up on that for sure. And also she established, sounds like she was super chill, right? Instead of being like, dear God, what the fuck are you doing? Don't
Yes.
get busy with your lady bits when you're 4.5. And she was really calm. And with this kind of thing, when kids are self-stimulating or self-pleasuring, that is like the most important thing for them, is that the parent is really calm. And it just teaches them that you're like, oh, I'm not going to freak out about this kind of thing when it comes to private parts.
And she shared it. The fact that she was able to share it means that already Mom has created an environment where she can talk about her private parts and share joy with her mom too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of fun.
I know. I think it's great. And it's great that she made that, of course, that association between it feeling good, because we, of course, want, I mean, I am always super fan of a girl discovering her clitoris, because kind of pointless for us to be doing the deed if we don't have, it's not pleasurable. And,
Right.
my philosophy is like the sooner the better. I'm a super fan of masturbation. I think every girl should know how her body works, or every female body
Yes.
should know about the magical clitoris. Its only job
Yep.
is pleasure. And I think part of the question the
Good
mom had,
job.
I know. I know. It's like, does it make up for everything else? Not quite. I know. Not quite.
Yeah.
But still,
There's harmony. We got harmony here.
we got harmony. I mean, it doesn't quite balance out. Maybe it does. I mean, anyway, so.
Well, if you think about it, a good song has crescendos and decrescendos and staccatos. And so the way my therapist, which I call for my clients, I say, your grand therapist, says if we strive for balance, then we're static.
Uh-huh.
If we strive for harmony, that's a good song.
Oh,
and
that's
I
nice.
love that idea that
Yeah.
there's a good song has a lot of different components to it. So the clitoris is definitely the crescendo.
Totally.
And hopefully it's one of those long notes. You hold it for a long time, and then maybe a rest, and then another long time.
Exactly. So anyway, all that being said, I think the mom's real question is like, okay, now what do I do with this now that I have this information, right? And she's doing it in public. Right? She's on her own. I mean, she's figured out about the shower wand. She's doing it.
Right.
And like her mom's right there. And so that's all, like with young kids, there's always this like, yay, you found your clitoris. And there's a time and a place. There's a time and a place.
In her question too, right? She's running forward. So she's being future focused. What should I do? Which again, when something happens and we have a feeling about it. So mom didn't really talk about her feelings or identify them, but from her words, there's a little bit of anxiety here, a little bit of tension.
Course. Yeah.
So
of course.
There's something that we have, they're called mirror neurons in our brain. So if we are calm, we can mirror people pretty well. If we are anxious, we cannot.
Right.
And what topic gets people more anxious than sex and sexuality? Because there is so much shame surrounding it, and there's so much fear surrounding it, especially with small children. Because again, what every parent has fears about their kids, but one of, I think, the global kind of across the board fears is that somebody will hurt your child, that they will take advantage of them. And with a little person like this enjoying that pleasure, mom started going down that she started spinning.
She did spin. I think she spinned. And the thing I think I like about her is that she's like, okay, what do I do? And asking for help. And I think for a circumstance like with a young kid, like my go-to response is like, yay, you, go you figured out that feels good. Bravo. And then the time to do that is when you're alone. Because other people feel uncomfortable, and she doesn't have to say anything more than like that, and like the redirection of like, when you're in the shower by yourself, or when you're in your bedroom by yourself, because that is also establishing a sexual boundary, which comes back to what you just said.
Right.
Because if you're able to tell you're talking to your kids and you're saying, you're touching your privates is only for you, or if you need help right in the bathroom or with the doctor, and establishing that boundary really early. So this to me is like a great opportunity for her to do some of those things that you just said, right? We're all terrified, right? That our kids are going to be molested. And then here's this great opportunity for her to like be calm and then say the things.
But in this moment would be, in my opinion, and this is my opinion, it's not the correct moment. My opinion would be to mirror her. She says, Mom, it tickles. Ooh, I'm glad you're having fun. I'm glad you're enjoying yourself. And leave it at that for then, because that is allowing her, that little girl, that moment. She gets to have fun. And as my son always says, not everything's a goddamn life lesson, Mom.
Yeah.
Close to it. Like talking about this little girl, I find this very easy. She's not my little girl.
Right.
But if it was my little girl, I would have trouble not making it a life lesson. But kids are not always open for life lessons.
Yeah.
And sometimes just meeting them where they're at is the biggest problem with adults. Parents tend to be invalidating. When I was your age, or in 5 years, you won't care about this. The kids are where they are. And where this little girl was in the moment was having a grand time with the shower wand.
Yeah. And I love that, meeting her there. And then later saying, hey, just to fill in the blanks here, some things you need to
Validate
know.
her experience. I think it's a separate conversation. If she starts humping the dog and the couch and there's other stuff, then you're going to have to be like, all right, let's not generalize the shower wand to everything else. Like, I get to encourage this, right? So if this little girl presents her family with an opportunity because all of a sudden she's humping, her Minnie Mouse doll in her bed or whatever, that mom can say, hey, what's going on?
FYI.
And again, she can pleasure herself in her bed with her Minnie Mouse doll if she wants to. However, this might be a good time and a good place to say the things you're saying. Yay, you found your clitoris. You found this. It's so wonderful. And right?
Yeah, that's great.
I love you're having fun with Minnie Mouse. But let's say you're with your cousins or your brothers in here or somebody else. This is a private thing for you. Yeah. And I think that's where we mirror their emotions. We validate their experience. Kids don't always want the life lesson. And especially any kid under 10. It's a very slippery time because you'll lose them.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. I love that idea of mirroring and meeting them where they are. I always go straight to okay, let's fix the problem. And I think you're totally right, especially with a young kid, just acknowledging yay, you figured that out. That's awesome.
Right.
And then that's it. And then that's it. And then later saying, hey, P.S., here are the rules around this thing. So yeah, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah. You're an educator though.
I love that idea of mirroring. I always go straight to the correction or being supportive and hey, go you, and here's the rule. But I think this is a much better approach, especially with young kids, just to say, hey, awesome, you figured that out. It tickles, it feels good. Go you. And then, like you said, later saying, okay, and P.S., here are the rules around this to keep you safe.
And if the opportunity doesn't present itself organically or you don't find an in, sometimes we have to create situations where it might happen.
Absolutely.
That's not being manipulative. You're an educator, right? We all have rules, and I have the rules. Put your bra on always. Boundaries, roles, accountability. And her mom's role at this point was to be a mom.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, cool. All right, let's go to our next one.
Hi, I have a 17-year-old son, and I have a question about sex. It's about rules around having sex in our home. So he is dating somebody who comes from a very conservative Catholic background, whose parents don't even want her having sex, although they finally acknowledge that she is. And we come from a perspective of, much less conservative. We want our child to be able to bring home whoever he is in a relationship with and not be, having sex in the park or in the parking lot or whatever. The issue comes with, we started out saying that, yes, you can bring her home and that's fine. But two issues arose. One is that I noticed that I felt uncomfortable with the fact that even though it was okay with us, philosophically, we were essentially allowing them to do something that her family was opposed to. And so I can't sort of uphold everybody else's values, but there was some piece that just sort of didn't sit right. And then the other part, which is more concerning to me, is that they weren't very respectful. So she doesn't hang out here for anything else. It just feels like she comes over to have sex. And when they do, they're not respectful of privacy. So if we're downstairs and they're above our heads, we're going to hear the bed creaking or whatever, and that's super uncomfortable for brothers and us and whatever. And we don't want to be uncomfortable in our own home. So we're trying to figure out how to marry, our values, where we want to be allowing him to develop a healthy sex life, on the one hand, and not relegate him to parking lots and parks, but on the other hand, make it work for our family, and we're noticing that we're really uncomfortable. So we would love your perspective. Thank you.
Okay, there's a lot going on in there, in that question. So clearly some conflict and all kinds of things. So I don't know, pick a piece. Nikki, go for it.
Okay, so my therapeutic approach to everything is good communication, right? Creating a structure for communication, because unpacking this is like a suitcase from a month-long trip.
I
You
was
know
like,
what I
what
mean?
the fuck? I mean, the first time I listened to it, I was like, okay, wait a minute. Like, how many different directions are we going to go here? So
Right.
obviously communication is key. So
Yes.
what do you think about the kind of the first thing is around they're Catholic, we're not. Like, what, you got any ideas for like negotiating
Yes.
that?
Okay, so always, always, always in math, like in algebra, if we're trying to solve for x, right? X here is we're trying to find out how to address the religious component. And again, because I'm me and tend to love using metaphors, I say put on your bra. I don't care if you're a guy or a girl, you put on your communication bra. Boundaries, roles, accountability.
Got it.
So the first thing is the boundary. She's Catholic, he is not. I don't hear anything in here about the girls saying, I'm not going to have sex because I'm Catholic.
Right. That ship maybe sailed a little while ago. That's clearly not in her, like the Catholic thing around like waiting until you're married. That's not happening.
Her parents don't even want her having sex, although they finally acknowledge that she is. So in terms of boundary, this girl has clearly decided that it is in her boundaries to have premarital sex. And it's okay with her, I'm assuming, because she's doing it. And in here it talks about there's some noise.
Right. Right. They're clearly getting busy.
Enjoying it.
Yes. The parents suspect that she's coming over to their house so they can have sex. Right. So she's there to be bonking the boy. So that piece around like she's made her decisions about her boundaries about having sex with him outside of her family values. And so that piece around like, what does the boy's family do when they know that her family is not really down with this, but they're sort of encouraging it? What do you think about like what's their responsibility to the other family, do you think?
Well, I think their responsibility is to themselves first and their comfort level about their child who is almost an adult, let's face it, and old enough to be having sex. If it's consensual and they're doing it responsibly, if they're emotionally ready and they have a close relationship and they're comfortable, that's what they're doing, right? So when you say what is the family's responsibility to the other family, that's out of bounds.
Like there's no responsibility to the other family?
I don't think so, because the family isn't coming to them and saying, I don't like it that our daughter is having sex in your home.
Right.
If the other family was coming to them and saying, this upsets us, well, then maybe there would be a conversation. But either way, if this family, can we give them names like the Smiths and the Joneses?
Yeah, please, go ahead. Name them,
because it's a little easier, right?
Yeah.
The Smiths are allowing it. Maybe not encouraging it, but they are not discouraging it either.
So just to clarify, the Smiths are the girls' family or the boys' family?
No, where they're having sex is the Smiths.
Okay, the boys' family.
Yes.
Are the Smiths.
Smiths, yep. And the Joneses are the girls' family.
Okay, just to clarify. Okay, so keep going.
So we'll get it. So the Smiths are not encouraging it, but they're not discouraging it. They are acknowledging it and they are accepting it as a reality. That being said, there's a little here about the noise and the boundaries and how they are having sex is having an impact on the Smith family.
Right.
So their responsibility right now is to themselves. What are their boundaries around it? Because although they are not discouraging or encouraging this couple, they're just acknowledging that these young adults are making a conscious choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think to
do this.
Yeah. I mean, I like what you said about like, sometimes I get confused about like, what is the responsibility to the other family? Like what is the Smith's responsibility to the Jones when the Jones aren't like down with the girl having sex, but then the sex is happening at the Smith's house. They know the sex is happening at the Smith's house. And so, sometimes I think parents think, okay, we got to have this close communication around this, but really, because
completely out of bounds.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if like there's a problem and the kids are old enough to be doing the deed and they're doing it safely. What do you think? Like, what are some tips you think for the Smiths to help themselves with their boundaries? Like ideas for talking to the son or both of them, because it's clearly they're like love nesting at the Smith's house.
Yeah. And it's so awkward, right? It's tough because ideally, like I've said before, ideally these conversations happen in a more natural, organic way, right? So it would maybe be natural and organic to say, knock, knock, knock. can you guys keep it down in there? But they're also awkward.
That's totally, but that's good because that is like immediate, like, okay,
Right.
people, your behavior is having an impact. Or I think maybe a broom on the ceiling.
Maybe.
Broom
And
on the
depending on the
ceiling?
personality, because I don't know the Smiths, but all of my kids' friends, and especially my son's girlfriend, who, see, they started dating in 2014. So you do the math. So this young couple, who they're now 20, have been together since they were 14. My personality, I would knock on the door. I would be going, are you fucking kidding?
Right.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
I would not open the door.
Of course not.
You can't unsee that. And I don't want to. It's bad enough that there are times when my son's been in his boxer sitting there reading, and I'm like, I can see your balls. Please move your legs. Whatever. You know, and he's like, what? Remember when you said you changed my diaper? And I'm like, yeah, I did. I'm not changing your diaper now. Put your balls away. So my personality is such that I would knock on the door and go, are you fucking kidding?
Right. And so there's
and I would follow up later. And I would say, I love you guys. I know that you are being safe and responsible. That being said, how would you feel?
Right.
If Dad and I were doing this, or,
yeah, like, totally.
Okay.
Yeah. One of the things my husband says about the kids having sex at home is that I don't want to hear it, see it, or smell it.
Right.
I think that kind of pithy, I mean, I think parents get like worked up about stuff and they don't forget that like, it's okay to be funny. Like, I appreciate your really like thoughtful kind of therapeutic approach to things, but also like what you said, that's not thoughtful and therapeutic. It's like, what the fuck, knock it off. So I also think these parents, the kids don't know because the parents have been anxious about talking to them. So I think it's fair for them to just say, excuse me, but y'all should know, like to the son, on a nice aside, and just like, look, we can hear you when you're getting busy. So can you please like, excuse me, think about time and place here? Like, it's quarantine right now. We get that, but you can have a ton of fun. Like, get off the fucking bed for Christ's sake. Right.
And I think that's the boundary. So we're still at boundaries, right? So let's say the Smiths say to their son, Sam Smith, they say, Sam, this makes us uncomfortable. And Sam says, well, we're not uncomfortable. We're not embarrassed. That's out of bounds for Sam. Because if somebody says, I feel uncomfortable when you and your girlfriend are having very noisy sex in our home, this is where the boundaries get this could go into a lot of conversations. But the thing is, the Smith parents make the rules.
Right.
It is their home.
Right.
They are paying the bills, and there are other people. And it's not that Sam is not welcome and loved and his room is his space. But in terms of boundaries, a minor child in the care of their parents has to understand that they get a certain amount of privacy, but there has to be transparency because they are still parenting.
And only a certain amount of privacy, right? Like that is like, I think the other thing too, like I hear you say that and I think, oh, and that kid's going to come back and say, well, you've always been talking to me, and like flip it back at them.
That's a squirrel. That's a
squirrel. Oh, total squirrel. But that's what they're all about, especially at that age, right? They know everything. They're the bestest ever at everything. And so I think I think that finding a way to say that to them and not to get to the kids together, because the girls, once he tells her, the girl's going to get weird. No doubt. She's going to get weird. But I think this is good. I think this will give them enough to kind of go with and get the parents to get things going. So why don't we
and I
one
agree
more thought?
with you too. About talking to the boy and not talking to the boy with the girl, because again, that's just being kind and considerate of her. And that's what parents should do. It's a good should to say, we are going to rise above and we are going to be as considerate and kind and compassionate as possible because we care about this young girl and we don't want her to feel shame about this. Because again, shame surrounding any sexual stuff is not helpful.
Right.
Ever.
Exactly. So cool. All right. This is good because, lots of us are eventually going to let our kids have, Milo has sex in our house and clearly you're the same. And this is something that every parent needs to grapple with and decide about. And my beliefs about it changed as Milo got older. I was a no wayer at the beginning. And then now I'm like, yes, please. It's the safest place for them to have sex, but with boundaries and with some rules because we don't want to hear it, see it, or smell it.
Boundaries, roles, accountability. Put your bra on. And the
Perfect.
roles of the parents, the roles of the kids, everyone stay in your damn lane. And if you're going to get out of it, signal, check your blind spots, check your speed, all of these things, you know?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Cool. If you're thinking, oh shit, I do not have what I need to have these kinds of conversations with my kids about this kind of sex stuff, you're not alone, and I have help. If you go to birdsandbeescourse.com, you will find my Birds and Bees Solution Center. This is where I have pulled together pretty much everything I know about talking to kids about sex. So there are videos for you to learn from about helping you have great conversations, and then there are webinars and videos from everything from abortion to porn to herpes zosters. Not really. I don't think I have an STD one over there. Anyway, webinars on talking to kids about porn and the impact of porn on kids. A webinar that is all about what they need to know at each age and stage. And then puberty webinars. You name it, it's in there. So check it out, birdsandbeescourse.com. And if you use the code podcast, you will get 50% off, and it's $7.50 a month.
Hi, Amy. I have 2 boys, ages 11 and 14, and we've been pretty open with them about all things sex and porn since they were little. But when I ask them about porn now, they both say that they've never seen it. And while I'd like to think they are unicorn children, I know that statistically speaking, they have definitely come across it. I'm wondering if I should adjust my expectations that they would be open to talking about it, or how the conversation should change since apparently they don't feel comfortable talking about it. I'd love to hear any thoughts you have. Thank you.
Porn all the time. It's all about porn. And especially right now when kids are on like screens for fucking 400 hours a day. That being said, good news for her that she's already been talking about it.
Absolutely.
Right? And they're sex educated, which just goes so far. I mean, the parents that are like, my kid saw porn, they don't know what sex is. That is a shitty, shitty place to be as a parent, because there's so much to like undo and then like recover and all that crap. So score on that front. So what do you think about her other question or other questions about the boys and conversations and
well, this is a big one to unpack. I like how she says that they've been open. That's so great. When I ask them about porn now, they say they've never seen it. So I ran these by my family, and my son was so funny. He goes, okay, so was it a group ask? Are the 2 boys just sitting there and they're just kind of hanging out playing video games? And their mom's like, are you guys looking at porn? He's like, I would be mortified. I'd just be like, what? Especially if like Kate was sitting here and I'm like, okay, good point. Was it a group ask? Is she confronting them? Because all we know is the impact.
Right.
Right. So she says, when I ask them about porn now, they both say they've never seen it.
Of course they do. Of course they do. It doesn't even matter. Honestly, it probably doesn't even matter how, like she could be like cool as a cucumber and be like, hey, I was just thinking, you're on the screens. Have you ever seen porn? And they're going to say no. No. They're going to say no, right?
No. Oh my gosh, Amy, I was researching. I was trying to find some pictures I was doing a presentation about bullying, and I was looking for a picture of Ralph Wiggum and Lisa Simpson because he gave her the Valentine, I choose you.
Right.
So I'm scrolling down in these pictures on Google and I see a bunch of, it's a gangbang. It's a Simpsons gangbang. It's like they're all just all over Lisa. And I'm just like, what just happened? And my son, this was a while ago, my son says, don't you know about rule whatever? It's basically, if someone can make porn out of it, they'll do it. You can find it on the internet.
Yep.
And I'm like, but that's Lisa Simpson they're gangbanging. And he's like, I know, it's disgusting. If 11 and 14 here say they've never seen it, we know.
Of course they've seen it. Like no child escapes, they don't escape childhood without seeing it. And they're boys, and boys are exposed way more frequently than girls are. And if I were an 11-year-old and I was looking for Simpson pictures and I found Lisa Simpson being gangbanged, I would Google gangbang.
Yes.
Right. That's how this happens, right? It's a rabbit hole. And all of the porn now, we would consider it super graphic. Yeah. Hardcore. Super graphic, hardcore. It's so different than what we were exposed to. So anyway, so they're doing their job, right? Of saying, no, I haven't seen it. That's their job.
Yes. And the fact that they're saying, no, I haven't seen it, tells me, and I know it tells you, there's some shame and guilt around it. I don't know if it's shame or guilt, but those emotions are very different. Shame is incredibly heavy and damaging. Guilt is, it's an evolutionary necessity. It helps us evaluate how we are in relationships and how we want to behave. And, every feeling we have has a purpose. It either connects us or it keeps us safe from something that is not good. And so even if it's mom getting mad
Right.
that you've seen porn, of course you're going to deny it.
Right.
Because you're going to try to avoid these uncomfortable feelings.
Right. Right. Well, I think like Brene Brown, I'm just reading The Gift of Imperfection again. And she says, guilt is I did something bad, and shame is I'm a bad person.
Right. It's
right?
everything.
Yeah. It's all about, shame is about being a bad person as opposed to guilt, which I did a bad thing, which we can apologize for and repair, but shame is harder. And when it comes to sexuality and shame, as you've said, they're tied together. And so with the mom saying, have you seen this? Of course they've seen it. The question is, how frequently have they seen it? And of course, like you said, the blanket denial, bullshit. Total bullshit. And of course they're saying no, because they don't want her upset, right? They don't want her upset. They don't want her to be scared. They don't want to get in trouble. And so, this happens all the time. And so with this mom, clearly she kind of wants to get to the bottom of this and wants them to be honest with her. Do you have any thoughts about maybe helping that, helping her reestablish her relationship with them around this particular topic?
I do. First of all, they're 11 and 14. This is the age where they are going to pull away from her quite a bit. That is normal. That is healthy. It is also painful and difficult for the mom,
For sure. Yeah, for sure. We've both been there, right?
Oh, it hurt. It was a gender role thing. Mom would be a lot happier if she said to her boys, hey, this is something that I want to talk to you about, but I want to check in with you with your comfort zone. Is this something you need me to back off about? Yeah,
I don't know if I agree with you about that. I mean, definitely taking their lead as they get older to a degree. But one thing that happens with folks is that they think if my kid's not talking to me, then I don't need to talk to them. Right. So that's bullshit. So they need to find
them is different than lecturing them, right?
Right. That's what I mean. I'm not talking about lecturing, but parents think, okay, my kid's older now. They don't want to hear from me. And that's just bullshit. They can't not hear from you.
You're still going to parent.
You're still going to parent, and you still need to make sure they're safe. So I think in adolescence, parents don't know to look for those moments of lucidity, because they're keeping their shit together all day long. And then they come home and they're a mess. And then if you wait, they get lucid again when they've recovered from that, keeping their poop in a group all day. And so those are the times to look for, to say, hey, when I asked you this the other day, I just didn't, honestly, I didn't quite believe you. You're not in trouble, but I just want to know and make sure that you're safe. And say, and you don't need to say, you can even say, you don't have to open your mouth. I just need you to hear me say these things. Exactly. And then see what happens. And the other thing too is if she's asking them together, that's a no-go. You have to talk to this stuff with your kids separately. It doesn't matter how close the boys are. And another thing to do is to ask global questions and say, hey, I saw this thing on TV, or I read this stat. And so I'm just curious, how many of your friends you think have seen porn, and see what they say. Because they'll say all of them. And then they're saying them too, right? Right. And then you get your little blurb in about, how porn is awful for developing brains and developing sexuality. And, I don't recommend lecturing per se, but you do don't abdicate your throne because your kid's uncomfortable. That just infuriates me.
Exactly.
And adolescents are hard, right? It's a hard time. It's hard for everyone.
Well, I think it's where they can't meet us where we're at because they've never been our age, right? But we can go back. But I think the tricky part is if we use our context to try to get kids on our side, it's like having a political argument. You're trying to tell somebody something that they are not interested in buying.
Right.
But whether or not they're interested in what we think about porn being wrong or right, and I don't believe it's a good thing. I agree with you 100%. I do understand why they're drawn to it and why they're curious about it, and it makes their brain go wee and all that good stuff. So I'm not saying don't talk to your kids or don't have discussions about values and safety and sort of like you say, these global questions or general applications about the world. But I also think too that when kids get put on the spot, especially if it's open-ended questions, no matter what, and this is a little off topic, but it'll go back. If somebody says to me, do you want to go out to dinner? Usually I'm going to say no. I would rather eat at home. My husband knows this, but he says, okay, we're going out to dinner because I like to go out to dinner, which is fine. He has to say that.
Yeah.
But he knows if he says, where do you want to go?
Forget it.
Start to short circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
But if he says,
yeah.
do you want Mexican or Italian? I'm like, oh, good.
Yes.
I have two choices. But if he says, do you want Mexican, Italian, Chinese, or steak? I'm like,
yeah, can't do it.
It's too much for me because I'm a visual person. And I'm translating this in boys tend to be, especially adolescent boys, very, very visual.
Yeah.
And so normalizing the draw.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then normalizing the experience of acting on that impulse.
Right.
Following through with that. So there's no shame in being attracted to it and interested in it. But there is a lot of not okayness, if you will, of viewing it and looking at it because of what it does to your brain. That's different than a picture of a naked woman.
Right. Yeah. And that understanding, helping them understand that it does have an impact on them, and being careful. Like I totally like that, like the global question. And then like, do you want to go out for dinner? And you're like, no. How about Italian? Or that's better for just about everyone. But for adolescent boys in particular, and adolescents in particular, they don't need a smorgasbord. It's a funny place when you're parenting teenagers where you need to talk to them like they're an adult, like their friend, like your quality of conversation should be like if you and I were just having a regular conversation, but there is a subtext, right? Where you're not friends, right? Like just because that's your communication style doesn't mean that you're abdicating your throne as their parent. You're not friends. So, kind of back to her question, I think that we know they've seen porn. And so I think she can just make that assumption. And now the conversation should be more around like, and dropping factoids and impact, like
factoids. Yes.
And impact, right? Like, God, do you know what happens when, what can happen with this and how it can impact the brain or just like people's feelings about themselves as sexual, and like their whole thing about consent, right? Like seeing women like that, they don't look like that. It's not real. So just like talking about it like that, and they're going to take it in and they're going to do what they will with it. But putting them on the spot is not good. Is not good.
And also too, what's interesting is the age difference, 11 and 14. So there are plenty of 11-year-olds out there that still believe in Santa and they're watching porn.
Yep. It's
which is super
show.
Weird, right?
Yeah.
But the 14-year-old is a little more experienced and has more context. So these conversations are going to be different. But I would say that when you're talking with a 14-year-old and you're parenting in a firm and friendly way, a 14-year-old is old enough to start seeing a parent as an individual and not just an object.
Oh, totally.
Right? You don't just take mom off the shelf when you want macaroni and cheese or you need a new notebook.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for mom to be able to say, I want you to know that these are my values and these are my opinions, and that as your mother, I'm trying to raise you with these values because not only are they going to help you stay connected to people, if you're drawn to porn, right? Like sex is a wonderful way to connect. Touch is so important in healthy relationships. And for men, we know this, touch is so important as they age. It lowers their risk of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, all these things. So touch is important. It is an absolute love language, physical touch, not just sexual touch. So even being able to parlay that into, this is a big part of your health moving forward. So I hope that you never feel shame or guilt in wanting to be touched or wanting to have sex. Right? The difference is that women are not objects. And when the mom, this is a great way for the mom also to give a real life example of herself not being an object.
Yeah, that's great.
I am not a tool. I am this person who has feelings and values. And when I think about porn or see porn, I feel sad and I feel worried about the girl. And I know that that is not at all what I would like my sex life to be like.
That's great. I think that's such a great point. Yeah. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. Okay. So I just want to leave one more thing about the porn thing, because holy fucking motherfucking Christ, if you do not have parental controls and monitoring installed on every device your kids access the interwebs on, they are guaranteed to see porn. I say this all the time. All the time. And if you go to birdsandbeesandkids.com/circle, you can check out kick-ass monitoring, whatever it's a software, I don't know what to call it, and get $20 off. But I don't give a fuck if you use that. I just want you to I want you to parent.
I
want you to, this is parenting.
Something.
Thank you so much. It was so great to have you on and be my first guest star. I think your insights were really, really wonderful. And I love having a different eyeballs on the scene. So thank you so much.
Different editors, right? It's good.
different perspectives. So check out Nikki's book, Moms Who Drink and Swear. It's hilarious. Her Facebook page is also super fun. And, you're parenting, we've known each other for a long time, and I think you're also an excellent parent. So like double, triple bonus. Well, we're all trying. That's it for this week. Thanks to everyone who's been calling in. The number's 206-926-1522. So please leave me a message if you have a question or a tale from the trenches. And thank you to Melanie Smith, my producer, and to Rolf, who wrote the Birds and Bees and Kids theme song.